Alrighty, good morning everyone. Today we'll be doing another Zendikar Rising draft, and our first pick is the Merfolk Rogue legendary creature that has ninjutsu, but it also reanimates a creature, a permanent, from my opponent's graveyard whenever it deals damage to them. So I actually think this might be a fun time to force rogues, so let's go. Alright, Ruin Crab. I mean, we're going to be milling, we're going to be playing rogues, and Ruin Crab mills, and fits in with Zareth-san. And I would take Feed the Swarm, because I think Feed the Swarm is an excellent card. Mind Carver is not bad either. But Ruin Crab will not ever wheel. People love drafting Ruin Crabs, I've noticed. Alright, what are we dealing with here? We've got Skitter Sneak, Agra Constrictor, enters battlefield with 2/1/1 counters on it. Each creature you control with a 1/1 counter has Menace. Skyclave Relic is just fixing with Kicker. That might actually be the best pick. Into the Royal is, I think, generally going to be better. I think the Rainbow fixing is worth taking over Into the Royal. We'll generally see one or two more of these across the whole draft, I think. Let's see if that holds true. Okay, there's a Feed the Swarm. There's also a Blood Beckoning and a Vanquish the Weak. I'm going to take Feed the Swarm because it is the cheapest of the removal. Yeah, I think this card is probably one of the more powerful ones. Alright, there's a Zulaport Duelist, which is a rogue that mills our opponent for 2 and can act as a combat trick. Blight Priest, probably not. Cleric of Chill Depths, maybe not. There's another one of the rare duels. I actually think you could probably play this in Boggles. I think that's the fair choice for a card. We'll take the Duelist. I think I take Malakir Rebirth here. It's a decent combat trick, or it can be a land, and I think that's powerful enough. Alright. I think Drana's Silencer is probably the best. Problem is we are going to be pretty heavy with just rogues. So it's really only going to ever give -1/-1. We could take a Cascade Seer, I guess. We don't have any 4s yet, so I'm going to take Cascade Seer. Okay, Sky Dancer's fair. It has Flash, it's a combat trick, it also mills our opponent, which does matter because we have Zareth-san. Cliffhaven Kite Sail might be good. Giving this guy flying would be pretty excellent, but kind of medium for everything else we could do with it. I'll take it. I'm probably going to end up cutting it, but you never know. I've heard you can make a pretty sick limited aggro deck around this card if you get more than one and you get the pickaxe. Be interested in trying to do that at some point. I'll take the Skitter Sneak, I'll take the Skitter Sneak. I don't know if I'm actually going to be playing these cards, simply because I don't know if they're that good. Kind of depends on how quickly we can mill our opponent. Which, at this point, is probably not super slow, because we do have a Ruined Crab. I'm kind of hoping we pick up 2 or 3 more of those. That'd be sweet. And we could play Crab Tribal in Limited. Sure. Take a Kazandu Nectar Pot for the side. Technically, if we wanted to splash a 3rd color, it would not be difficult to splash off of Skyclave Relic. I guess I take Cleric of Chill Depths. Alright, we'll take another Cleric. And a Swamp for the sideboard. Alright. So, Swarm Shambler is a really good card. Problem is, I am not in that deck at all. And while I could splash this, it would not be good in the deck that we're building. I mean, it's good enough by itself, obviously, but it's not... there's no deck synergy. I want to take Merfolk Windrobber, because it's a flying man that makes Zareth-san easier to ninjutsu. Lull Mage's Domination is really good, but might also come around, because it's triple blue, and it's very difficult to cast. So we're going to take the Windrobber. Okay, we can either take Acquisitions Expert or Into the Royal. Acquisitions Expert is a pretty cheap way to at least get a card out of our opponent's hand. It's basically a, what is it? It's a rat card. It's a 2-mana 1/1 rat. Says your opponent discards a card, and I can't remember the name of it right now because I haven't had all my coffee and I'm still very tired. I kind of want to take Legion Angel just for playing in Battle of Wits, but I think I take the Rogue. We're looking for some of the rogues that you can tap other rogues to give Death Touch. I think that would be quite good. Another Malakir Rebirth or a Zilliport Duelist. I think I like having all of the 1-mana rogues, really. We're going to be playing kind of an aggressive deck, so I think that's fine. Malakir Rebirth was probably the actual pick there. Another Zareth-san. We're going to have multiple. Well, this should be fun. Oh, you know what's awesome? Is if somebody tries to use removal on Zareth-san in the declare blockers stage, after blockers have been declared and he's unblocked, we can ninjutsu him to himself to blank removal. It's incredibly narrow, and odds are your opponent will not use removal at that time if you're playing creatures with ninjutsu, but if they don't understand what's happening, or they're not paying attention, that's something they potentially could walk into. Roiling Vortex. Any of each player's upkeep deals 1 damage to them. If they cast a spell and no mana was spent to cast it, it deals 5 damage. Wow. Otherwise we have like Salundi Vision or Deliberate. I think Deliberate's probably the most useful in a deck like ours. Salundi Vision, though, is a little more versatile, being able to be played as a land, so I think I'm going to take that. Plus, I need this card for Battle of Wits. I don't really want to take another Cleric, but I will over a Kite Sail. Alright, Mind Carver. Yeah, that's fair. I'll take a Mind Carver. It's the rogue equipment. Alright, Cunning Geyser Mage is not a bad trick at all, especially because we're a little light on 3. Thwart the Grave, reanimating 2 creatures is quite good. Yeah, I'm going to take Thwart the Grave. I think this card is way too powerful to pass up. Geyser Mage would have been my next pick. I don't generally want multiple Mind Carvers. I would take them over cards not in my color, but Subtle Strike is a decent combat trick, can let you win a combat or swing it in your favor. Sizzling Barrage deals 4 damage to target creature that blocked this turn. Yeah. There's a lot of red burn. There's the Royal Eruption card with Kicker. They can go anywhere at sorcery speed, which is really good. There is another red burn spell that is 2 mana and deals 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker at sorcery speed, which is also very good. And then there's that spell that I just was talking about, the 4 damage to a creature that blocked this turn, and that one's not that great. Alright, we're going to take Cleansing Wildfire, just because potential constructed applications. I'm getting tired of losing with janky decks right now in constructed. I know my last one was pretty deep, but I thought it had a little more game than it ended up showing. Like I said, I played some 2-mans before, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see this deck working a little bit. But I guess I just got lucky, and then I got unlucky when I did the league. And so I think the next deck I make might be a land destruction deck. We'll see. Alright. I don't want the Squid. I'll take the Cleric, even though we have 4 now. Makindi Ox in the sideboard, Forest to the sideboard. Awesome. Seagate Restoration, not a bad card, also needed because constructed purposes. I think in this deck it's actually quite fine. Like, if we ever end up casting the front half, sweet. We end up just playing the land, that's just fine. Roost of Drakes is kind of nice, but we only have like 1 kicker spell, and I think it's the Skyclave Relic, because we didn't pick up any into the Royals. That would also be a fun deck. Just take a bunch of the Skyclave uncommons, and then just get a whole bunch of into the Royals, and keep unsummoning your opponent's creatures while you're getting Drakes and limited. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Okay. Bloodchief's Thirst. There's a black-white land. This is the better card for our deck, and by a lot. And this is a rare dual land I don't have. I don't actually think it's worth that much. Let me check. Oh, well. My little macro can't determine the online price of it, so we'll just take the removal spell before I change my mind. Thundering Rebuke, that was the other removal spell that I think is actually very good in this format. I'll take another duelist. Nobody wants the pathways, huh? I kind of want to take another duelist, but this Feed the Swarm is calling to me. That gives us 1, 2, 3 good hard removal pieces. What do you do? Seafloor Stalker gets 1-0 and can't be blocked this turn. Costs 1 less to activate for each creature in your party. I like this because it late game gives us a way to guaranteed ninjutsu Zareth-san. So I'll take the Seafloor Stalker simply because I think Drana's Silencer is actually going to be terrible in our deck. I think at best it gives us -2/-2, and for 6 mana we ought to be doing more than that. Like reanimating stuff. I think I want a Deliberate. Seafloor Stalker is nice. We have 19 creatures already. I guess we really only have like 15 because I'm probably not playing any of these clerics. Yeah, I'll take the Deliberate though. Okay, I will take another Zulaport Duelist. Because why wouldn't you mill your opponent this hard if you had the opportunity? Okay, we'll take a Palaka Predation, just kind of as a land spell. Oh, it even wants me to take the green card over Skyclave Squid. Yeah, I don't like Relic Amulet. I'll take the Squid, because it's in my color, technically. We do not have a lot of 2-mana rogues. But I think we have enough playables that we don't need the rogue with Death Touch. It's still technically correct to take this. Alright, yeah. I wanted to take the Cleansing Wildfire for the sideboard, but for the constructed application, but... Take another Deliberate. Zulaport Duelist came around, swamped the sideboard, a card we can't play, and a mountain we don't care about. Alright. We have, what is that, 5 Zulaport Duelists? This'll be fun. Okay. I'm going to start by cutting a few cards here that I don't really want to be playing. Let's see. And then we will check and see how our deck looks post these cuts. I'll put all of these in a pile real quick. So we have 24 cards. I think I want to cut one of these cards, and then we're going to run these as lands. I guess I don't need the Deliberate. Alright, 7 and 6. Okay, I think we have ourselves a very interesting rogue deck. And this should be a lot of fun. So hopefully we just wail on some people and mill a whole bunch of them. Alright. Well, we're basically guaranteed to have a Zulaport Duelist in our opener. Malakir Rebirth can get us to Skulker. This hand is not particularly powerful, but it has both colors of mana. So, I'm going to try keeping this. When it starts Forest, we draw a Mind Carver. So, play an island, pass the turn. Yeah, I think I want this guy down early. Okay, opponent plays a Forest. Plays Zulaport Duelist. Oh, okay. Zulaport Duelist cannot mill your opponent unless they have a creature. Noted. Alright, play Malakir Mire. Go to combat. Attack for 1. And pass the turn. Okay, opponent casts a Harrow at sorcery speed. It's actually way worse than Harrow, because the lands that Harrow gets come in untapped. Alright, flash in another Zulaport Duelist. We're not going to mill ourselves. Okay, we draw Salundi Vision. So the question is, do we play an Equip Mind Carver, or do we play Expedition Skulker? And I think we play the Skulker. Okay, hit our opponent for 2. 4 mana, opponent plays Uraga Visionary. And then plays a Forest. We untap. We draw a Swamp. So play a Swamp, play Mind Carver. Equip a Duelist. Go to combat. And attack for 4. Okay. Opponent puts a 1/1 counter on and blocks. We'll pass. We're not equipping because we do. We want to cast Selendi Vision. We might equip next turn if we don't have anything to do. It does suck that this can only find instants or sorceries. It's too bad that it's not just like a mega impulse. But that might be too powerful with the land on the back. Okay, opponent plays a Prowling Felidar. Okay, so I guess let's look for removal. We did not find it. Okay, untap. Draw Nimana Skydancer. So go to combat. Attack for 2 with Death Touch. Okay, opponent goes to 13, and we pass. Okay. Opponent puts a +1/+1 counter on Prowling Felidar. They go to combat and attack. Let's flash in Nimana Skydancer. Opponent mills 2. And we will double block the 4/3. We have a decent number of removal spells for our opponent's other creature that we can draw. Plus, we just dug for 6 and didn't find any of them. In addition, if we have nothing else to do, we can thwart the grave and reanimate 2 cards that mill our opponent. And then we can turn on Mind Carver and make more of our creature's actual threats. Okay, opponent casts an Adventure Awaits. They get a Canopy Baloth. Okay. We untap. Draw Ruin Crab. Save that for when we have a land drop 2. So let's go ahead and reanimate 2 creatures. Guess shrink the Baloth for a turn. Go to combat. Attack for 2 with Death Touch. Okay, opponent plays a Raptor, picks up a land. Replays it for the landfall triggers. They get in for a lot. Jump here. They play another Canopy Baloth. Okay, we draw a Blood Chief's Thirst. So play Ruin Crab. The question is, which one of our opponent's creatures do we kill? I think it has to be a Baloth. This is a problem. Actually, it might have to be the Prowling Felidar because of Vigilance. The Baloths are a problem. We can Death Touch one of them down, but we're going to have to start chumping. It might not matter, but I feel like the creature with Vigilance is what's providing the most value. So we're going to kill that. If we have to feed the Swarm, they all have the same CMC. I mean, except for the Raptor, of course, but... Alright, no attacks. Pass the turn. Opponent arrests the Skulker, which is pretty bad for us. We're going to trade with the Flyer, but we can't feed the Swarm anything now, so we have 2 dead cards in our deck. Yeah, that won't do it. Alright, well now I know a few more things about the deck that I'm playing, so hopefully I can do a little bit better. It kind of sucks that Zulaport Duelist can only mill our opponent if they have a creature. I would have taken that card a lot less highly had I known that. Had I read that, I should say. I should have known that. We'll play first. Alright, we've got removal, we've got dudes. Let's go. Start island, pass the turn. Okay. Flash in Duelist. Not targeting anything. Go to combat. Attack for 1. So if our opponent plays an X1, we can Subtle Strike. If they play anything else, we can just Duelist and then feed the Swarm on our turn. Okay, they play a Mountain. I don't think I want to use the other Duelist. I think I'll just wait. Seafloor Stalker. Okay. Well, go to combat. Get in for 1. Pass the turn. Plays a Plains, 3 mana. Valakut Exploration. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. At the beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with Valakut Exploration, put them into your graveyard, and then it deals that much damage to each opponent. Alright, so it's kind of like Torch of Defiance, where you can like get an additional draw for some damage, potentially. Yeah. Alright. Flash in Cutthroat, not targeting anything. Untap. Draw an island. Play an island. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Take our opponent to 16. And I meant to play Seafloor Stalker, but I clicked too many times. I don't know what it is about this, but like, alright, opponent exiles Prowling Felidar. Okay, so they cast it. We untap and draw Malakir Rebirth. So play Malakir Mire. Yeah, not having that Seafloor Stalker is a big deal. Hit our opponent for 2. Especially because now our opponent is drawing extra cards. Okay, they play a land, and they can play a Kabira Outrider now. Alright, we can kill that with a Subtle Strike. And we can kill it for free with Subtle Strike Zolaport Duelist. So, go to combat. Attack with everybody. That's 4 damage we've missed. Or 3 damage, because they would probably block that this turn. Okay, play Zolaport Duelist. Target our opponent's creature. They mill. Then we Subtle Strike. Target creature gets -1/-1. Target creature gets +1/+1. Not to mention, we could start activating this to dump our mana, because we have 4 mana now. I feel bad about that. Our opponent plays a Core Blade Master and a Murasa Brute. We untap, we draw Zareth-san. This has Double Strike. We could attack and take a creature from our opponent's grave. This guy also just has Flash. Yeah, I think we play Cascade Seer and try and find a land. Acquisitions Expert. The land on top. Okay, pass the turn, no attacks. Okay, opponent arrests the Cascade Seer. Plays a Relic Axe on the Troll Warrior. And they attack for 5. So we'll chump, untap. We draw the swamp we put on top. This is a 2/3 that gets 1/1 permanently, and this is a 4/3 that gets 2/2 temporarily. Play the swamp. Go to combat. Attack. I think we take the Felidar given the option. So we hit our opponent for 6. The Baloth is a bigger attacker, though. Yeah, I'm going to take the Baloth. Okay. And now we have Zolaport Duelist to greatly mitigate damage. Okay, opponent plays a Makindi Ox. We're really hoping to draw a land off the top. Okay, flash in Zolaport Duelist. Doesn't matter what we target. Okay, untap. There it is. Play the land. Pump the Baloth. Kick the Geyser Mage. Unsummon Murasa Brute. Go to combat. And swing for the fences. They have to throw the Ox in front of Zareth-san, which means they have to block with Core Blade Master on Canopy Baloth. This way they only take 3. And keep in mind, we should have dealt 3 more damage to them in the early turns, and had the Seafloor Stalker actually stuck, they would be dead. So hopefully we can win we can win despite making that massive punt, but we definitely should have won by now. Because our opponent just did not have, like, anything else. Yeah, they don't have enough mana for Ondu Inversion, which is, I think, what they would need to actually get out of this at this point. Yeah. Cool. So we get there, but only just. Let's do that again. Zareth-san is incredibly powerful, especially when you're milling your opponent. Not to mention, he gives you the opportunity, potentially, to reanimate multiple things, which is pretty nuts. Alright, our opponent chooses to play first. This is an okay hand, provided I remember to cast Seafloor Stalker. Alright, yeah, we're gonna play Palaka Caverns tapped. We could play Duelist and start getting in for damage, but next turn we can play Duelist and equip Minecarver. Or we can just play Acquisitions Expert. So let's do that, because that forces our opponent to discard a card, which is nice. This lets us save Zulaport Duelist as sort of a combat trick. Okay, we get rid of their Harrow, which is nice. Okay, opponent plays a Valakut Exploration. We draw Feed the Swarm. So we can either play Minecarver or we can play Seafloor Stalker. And I'm going to do this because I learned my lesson. Go to combat, get in for 1. Had I known my opponent's hand was going to be this slow, I probably would have started with Zulaport Duelist, but then we wouldn't have been able to play our 2-drop, so, because we would have had to play Palaka Caverns that turn. So sequencing matters a lot in this format, especially with your tap lands. You really need to be watching when you're playing a tap land, why you're playing a tap land, and alright, double Duelist is kind of nice. We can play and equip a Minecarver on Seafloor Stalker, and then if my opponent blocks, we can mill them for 4. I kind of like that. So equip the Stalker, go to combat, attack for 3, flash in a Duelist, shrink my opponent's guy. We don't even have to use the other Duelist. We can save it as a combat trick, or just flash it in on our opponent's end step. That's 5 cards in our opponent's graveyard, and Zulaport Duelist can make it 6/7. Potentially, turning on Minecarver. Between that and Feed the Swarm, I think we can. Okay, opponent plays a Kabira Outrider. Has to target itself. So one thing about Valakut Exploration, I think that card is really powerful. Like, in the best case scenario, it's a Phyrexian Arena that if you drew a card you couldn't play, because you draw the card on landfall, and if you draw a land, it deals damage. But it requires you to play the card you drew off of it that turn if you want the card advantage. And you may not be able to, it might be too expensive, etc. But it forces your opponent to play awkwardly instead of playing like a really good curve, which is kind of what I did this game. Yeah, we're doing this just so we can attack with Reckless Abandon. Okay, go to combat. Attack for a lot. So like you might be playing random, 3 drops, 4 drops when you have 5-6 mana and not be able to use the rest of your mana. Valakut Exploration is best when your entire deck is very cheap, i.e. like mono red. Like if you had like a whole bunch of the Akum Hellhounds and the green landfall equipment and a whole bunch of stuff like that in your deck, Valakut Exploration would be absolutely crazy. Okay, we get a Mana Sky Dancer. So this costs 4 to activate. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We'll leave up Malakir, the Malakir Mire front half that I can't remember the name of. And our opponent is dead in 2 swings. Apparently, my opponent thinks I'm trash. I understand wanting to blame your opponent when you lose. Like the other day when I was playing Tron and I played against like 3 decks that just obliterate Tron with like Ponza and Mill, which runs like every Tron hate card in the main deck just by coincidence, like that kind of thing. And Mill is not generally considered to be a good deck. I think I'm going to keep this because we have removal, we have, we got lands and stuff. Like, don't lash out at your opponent. We want more people to play this game, and if new players like first experience with opponents is them being toxic, like people aren't going to want to play, and that's bad for the health of the game. Like if you lose, Just be courteous, be civil, you know. And if your opponent's being a sore winner, just, you know, screw him. Like, you don't need to talk to him. You don't need to deal with him. You don't need to give them the satisfaction of you getting upset. Yeah, and I guess that's really all I have to say about that. Okay, so our opponent starts Cleric of Life's Bond, which is absolutely going to get Feed the Swarmed next turn. And if that's the case, we might as well flash in both duelists here. There's the potential for us to get more value by waiting to use the second one and using it as sort of a combat trick in addition with Subtle Strike. But that kind of doesn't line up here for a bit. So play a Swamp, feed the Swarm, take out the Cleric, we lose 2 life, and then we'll attack and our opponent will lose 2 life. Okay, opponent plays a Core Celebrant. We draw Pelaka Predation. So we can Subtle Strike to shrink the Core Celebrant, but it won't be enough to kill the Core Celebrant. So I think the best play here is to play Malakir Mire, because we need to be making land drops. And I'm actually going to cast Pelaka Predation and see if we can't nab a big spell from our opponent. Alright, they have Zoff Consumption, Scion on the Swarm, Blood Price. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it. Yeah, that seems scary. They can't cast Blood Price, and they won't be able to for a couple of turns, which means their next turn play is probably Zoff Consumption as a land, and then these 2 spells. I'm going to take Scion of the Swarm, though, because it's one of the things that's going to be hardest for us to answer. And then we'll pass the turn. Yeah, we don't... I don't like... I both do and don't like the fact that when there's creatures with adventure or multi-faced cards, and you force them to reveal their hand, it shows you both in their hand. Okay, so my opponent just ended up drawing a land so that they could play Blood Price. I like it because I think for players that kind of forget that this has a back half, it's easy and it puts it all in one place. But I wish it was configurable, because for me, I recognize cards by their front half. And having that extra information and then like looking at their hand and being like, why don't those numbers match? It like every single time drives me just a little bit more insane. So play a Swamp. We still can't attack into this, which does really suck. Hopefully my opponent is forced to play this Ghastly Gloomhunter before they can kick it. Okay, opponent drew another Swamp. Plays a Marauding Blight Priest. So both of those cards are likely what they got off of Blood Price. We lose a life. They cast an Archpriest of Iona. We lose a life. Or no, yeah, because they gain a life. Okay. Untap. We draw Acquisitions Expert. We only have 1 creature type, though, so unfortunately, opponent gets to pick what they discard. They discard Zoff Consumption. Okay, so we know they're holding Ghastly Gloomhunter, and that's it. The difference between 6 and 9 mana for us is not that much, and especially when we're top decking, because we don't have that many draw spells or cantrips. And if we kick this, the tokens enter tapped anyway. So I think we're better off just casting this now. My opponent could get aggressive, but I don't think they will. And Subtle Strike is right now only good if my opponent attacks us. Okay, they drew their last land, so they're going to be able to cast this Ghastly Gloomhunter. So we're looking for, hopefully, a Feed the Swarm or other removal that we can use to kill that. Because them having a 3/3 lifelinker when we're losing life whenever they gain life is a big deal. Thwart the Grave is nice. I don't really think it does much. I guess we can attack and try and have our opponent get some bad blocks in. They'll kill most of our board, so we can then Thwart the Grave. Alright. So target creature gets -1/-1. Put a 1/1 counter here. We lose 1 guy, they lose a guy, and they take 2. The problem is, though, their creatures are such high toughness creatures that we didn't really accomplish much by doing that. Okay. Opponent attacks for 6 will end up taking 7 because they're going to gain 3 life here, which will trigger their 1 guy that makes us lose life. Okay. Then on their second main phase, they play a Fearless Fledgling. Okay, we draw a Cascade Seer. Play Cascade Seer. Go Scrying. We're taking a minimum of 5 damage, though, next turn. That chump blocks. Yeah, I think we're better off scooping this up and not showing our opponent any more of our cards. I think in order to win this, we're going to have to get some lucky mills, and our opponent's going to have to keep kind of an awkward hand, which is never a good place to be in. I mean, if we can also sneak in a Zareth-san and start reanimating stuff, then that would be great. Alright, we got Ruin Crab to start, 3 lands. I think I'm going to keep it. So, start Island. Get him with the crab. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays Ondu Sky Ruins. So they actually have Ondu Inversion, which is an 8-mana planar cleansing. Play Palaka Caverns, because we do want black mana next turn. Always yield to the crab. We mill 2 swamps and a Practice Tactics, which could be very good or very bad. Not going to swing 0 to send a message. I don't know if there's any destroy target tapped creature in this format, and I don't want to accidentally turn that on, because that could be very bad for us and our health. I'm going to save Zilliport Duelist, simply because we do have the crab, so like we're actually milling our opponent for a reasonable amount. Play an island, mill our opponent for 3. They have Legion Angel. Play the Skulker, leave up Duelist, pass the turn. No attacks. Okay, the fact that we milled 3 swamps and my opponent's only played plains is kind of nice. Okay, opponent gains 1 life. And they're going to pass turn. So, cast the Duelist, mill our opponent by shrinking this temporarily. We mill another swamp, fantastic. We draw Cascade Seer. I'm going to play Selendi Isle because I want to keep milling my opponent. We mill a tapped Black Source, go to combat. We'll attack for 2 with Death Touch. We don't have double black, so we can't Blood Chief's Thirst, and our other cost is... and they all cost 4 to do their best mode anyway here. So, okay, opponent concedes because we milled all their black mana. Perfect. We just have to do something like that again. And no adjustments, we'll just run it back. Crab Start is very powerful and limited, and is like, if you get just a little bit lucky and you mill all of the opponent's cards that they need, you're going to have a better time. This hand is way too slow. Especially for our opponent's deck. Alright, we've got a 1-drop and a couple of 3s. I'm gonna put back Palaka Predation, because I want my lands to come in untapped here. Like, I could have put back a swamp and played it on 2, but our best hand involves us drawing a 2-drop. Okay, opponent starts Blood Bog. Play an island, pass the turn. Okay. Do we want to use Duelist as a mill spell? I think it's worth casting. We want bodies on board, so that if we do get Zareth-san, we can actually ninjutsu him in. Okay, we get a 2nd island. Play a swamp, go to combat, and attack for 1. Hit our opponent for 19. Or hit our opponent to 19, not for 19. Sorry. It's early morning for me still. Okay, opponent kills him with Subtle Strike. Play a swamp, and we'll leave up Selendi Vision or Nimana Skydancer. We're almost certainly going with the Skydancer, of course. I kind of want to cast Skydancer now, because I want to mill them and see if I can mill any white sources. But we'll just wait. Okay, opponent plays a Marauding Blight Priest. Opponent is really having that mana trouble right now. Okay, flash in the Skydancer. We milled a Plains. We draw Skyclave Relic. So play an island. Play the Skyclave Relic. Feed the Swarm. I want to keep limiting what our opponent is capable of doing. Go to combat, and attack for 2. Would not mind drawing the crab next turn. Okay, opponent finally finds white mana. They play an Archpriest of Iona, which is just a 1-mana 1/2. We untap. We get a Merfolk Windrobber. So go to combat. Attack for 2. Okay, take our opponent down to 15. I think... we have a choice to make. We can either use Selendi Vision to Impulse and play Merfolk Windrobber, but I think because we want to get to 6 mana for Cunning Geyser Mage, and this is the guaranteed way to do it, I'm going to play Selendi Isle this turn. We'll play our Flying Men that mill a card, and then we'll pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays a 2-mana 1/1 flyer. They attack for 1. We're not scared of that. Take 1, go to 16. I am going to unsummon this Gloom Hunter, provided I don't draw something better to play this turn. Mind Carver. Well, Mind Carver will be kind of nice, but forcing my opponent to replay a bad 2-drop and use their mana inefficiently here is going to be kind of nice, because this also blocks Archpriest of Iona. It makes my opponent have an awkward turn. Like, it's just a good play this turn, I think. It also gives us another attacker. Alright, we mill a Blood Price, which is good. Anytime we mill a color of mana they need or a card they could cast, it's good. Okay, they play Kabira Outrider. They attack us for 4. Porter! He's barking because apparently my roommate is awake and stirring. Alright, we untap. We draw a Seafloor Stalker. So let's go ahead and play Mind Carver. Put it on our Flying Man here. Go to combat. And attack for 7. Opponent trades. They take 4, they go to 8. We remove most of their clock again. They have to mill. Core Celebrant. That's a good mill. I really would not want to see them play that here. We'll play a Seafloor Stalker, which is going to be a good way to get in damage, because we can make it unblockable. Okay. Opponent plays a Plains. They might have a Legion Angel, I think is probably what they've been waiting to cast. Sorry, Moto is kind of lagging. I'm going to have to restart after this match, I think. Okay, Shepherd of Heroes, they regain some life. We draw Seagate Restoration, which I think I'm actually going to wait to cast the front half of. This costs 4. We could equip to deal 4 instead of... yeah, we'll just wait. Okay. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Opponent takes 3, goes to 7. Uh-oh. That's a pretty big mana cost. Okay, so they kick the Gloom Hunter. If we can get one more card into their grave, we can do a ton of damage. We can actually do a lethal amount of damage, I think. No, it'll be 1 short. Expedition Skulker. So this is 3 mana to equip, this is 4 mana to activate. Okay, so play the Skulker. Activate the Stalker. Go to combat. Get in for 3, take them to 4. If they attack with the Gloom Hunter, and they almost certainly will, there's a question of whether or not we double block, and I think we do. That will free up Mind Carver to just equip onto Seafloor Stalker, which will be an additional 3 damage at that point. The only way that this goes wrong is if my opponent has an arrest. We could just take the damage. Our opponent does only have 1 flying blocker, and if we draw a Feed the Swarm, they're going to be taking, like, a ton. I think I'll take the damage this turn. At worst, we're just kind of, like, trading life total for a little bit here. So we take 3, we go to 9, they go to 7. Let's see what their follow-up is. I think it was too risky for them to have a removal spell for us to really block there. At least the first time. We can if we get desperate. Okay, they gain a life. We untap. We draw a Swamp. It does not really change things. Play a Swamp. I will cast Seagate Restoration. It's a 7 mana cantrip, but it's better than paying 3 life for a land right now. Okay, we get a Skitter Sneak. Alright, go to combat. I will attack with the Death Touch Rogue. Opponent does not block, and they go to 6. Okay. They have an instant. Vanquish the Weak. That is a little bit of a problem. Problem is we still can't really deal with this Gloom Hunter. We can trade Merfolk Windrobber, but I want to sack Merfolk Windrobber to draw a card. That way we can suit up the Sky Dancer and potentially... Alright, let's see what happens here. I assume they target there. Well, we're going to sack it to draw a card now, because we don't have a choice. Okay, we get a Duelist. Opponent gains a life and goes to 7. Now our opponent can start attacking in for a lot. That's exactly lethal, and we have to block. We'll trade for the 2/2. We take a lot. I don't know that there's a way we can kill our opponent here. I think they have too high of a life total. Our best bet would be our opponent not blocking this 2/2, so we could Zareth-san and... Alright, we drew Zareth-san. So is there a way we can finagle it so our opponent does not block Zareth-san? Because if we attack, we can ninjutsu him in, reanimate Core Celebrant, play a couple of guys, gain some life, shrink our opponent's attackers, and that might be enough to survive. We'll see, I guess. Go to combat. And if our opponent blocks, it's just the end of the game. Yeah, because we can't gain life now. We can shrink one of the flyers to only take 4 damage. We can play Skitter Sneak to block. We can even play Zareth-san to block if we wanted to. But we still take 4 in the air and we have no way to regain that life. So, alright, we lose. Alright, I'm going to restart Moto, and when I come back, we'll be in round 3. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back. Let's try and finish out this league strong, shall we? This hand is somewhat serviceable, but I'd like something with a little more tempo in it. I think I can work with this. It does suck that our only 2 black sources are tapped black sources, but we'll make do with what we got. I'll put back Malakir Rebirth. Polaka Predation being a tapped black source is a little bit more reasonable, I think. This does let us start Expedition Skulker. Zulaport Duelist then becomes a spell that shrinks our opponent's attacker and gives Expedition Skulker a it gives a death touch. So potentially we could get a really good combat trick out with this sequencing. So our opponent is playing green-black, it would appear. So play Expedition Skulker. Pass the turn. And the reason we put back Malakir Rebirth is if we draw another land, then we have a 4-drop. If we... Oh, crap. We can't give up the land. I guess we can give up Cascade Seer. I still kind of want Zulaport Duelist, and Mind Carver is not going to be bad either. So, reveal Cascade Seer. Alright, we draw Feed the Swarm. Play Mind Carver. Suit up the Skulker. Attack for 3. Okay, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Swamp. Goes to combat. Attacks. Well, we can at least take no damage this turn. Unfortunately, we can't block and kill it, too. That would be pretty good. We mill a Forest and a Hagra Constrictor. Take 0. I'm kind of expecting my opponent to play a 3 or a 4-drop. When it dies, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. Okay? We'll go ahead and feed the Swarm. We do want to get in for damage this turn. Unfortunately, our opponent does have a target for its on-death trigger. Hit our opponent for 4, take them to 13, play an island, and pass the turn. Alright, opponent plays a Skyclave Shadowcat. We untap, we draw Nimana Sky Dancer. So, past the turn, we're just going to flash this in on our opponent's end step. And then we'll use our turn to suit up with Mind Carver. If my opponent attacks with the Shadowcat, we will block with the Expedition Skulker. But I think that's the only way we would block. If my opponent just attacks with Acquisitions Expert, I'm not going to block. Yep. Okay, no blocks. Okay, opponent plays another Ghoul-Draw's Mucklord. So, flash in Nimana Sky Dancer. Opponent mills. We untap. We draw Salundi Vision. Now, I don't think we cast it this turn. And we do have a couple of cards that are higher CMC. I think I just play that tapped. We go to combat, get in for 3. Also, one thing I didn't specifically call out from last match that I think deserves a little bit of recognition is the fact that the game that we played Ruin Crab, we won. We also milled like half of our opponent's deck off of Ruin Crab alone. So if you get multiple Ruin Crabs and any amount of support around it in green or black, I really think you should play Ruin Crab Mill. Because it's just like, it seems like it's really powerful. If they're attacking like this, they should also attack with the Mucklord. Yeah, okay. We'll take 4. No blocks. Opponent plays a Ghastly Gloom Hunter. Puts a 1/1 counter on it as well. I really like that this card is listed with up to 1 target creature, letting you cast it without having a creature that you have to target. We untap. We draw Zareth-san. Yeah, I think we go all out here and attack and ninjutsu here. Unfortunately, I think our opponent is going to block in such a way that... Oh. Okay. That's not actually what I had anticipated. We do still have to pick up a rogue that we cannot recast this turn. So pick up Expedition Skulker. Hit our opponent for 7. We lose our 1/1 to gain 2, so we actually only hit them for 5, down to 7. And then we can take their Guldra's Mucklord. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Swamp. Okay, opponent plays Cliffhaven Kitesail. So my opponent can sack several creatures if they want to. And they attack for 5 in the air. Okay, no blocks. Down to 6. And it kicks another Ghastly Gloom Hunter. We untap and draw an island. I think we have to attack with Zareth-san this turn, and if we do, our opponent is definitely going to block. We have to hold back Nimana Skydancer, unfortunately. Okay, we're going to kill the Acquisitions Expert. We have the choice between letting our opponent draw a card and giving our opponent another 1/1 counter. And I think we have to give them the card. Okay, play Skulker. We'll just hold on to this island for the moment. Yeah, this Ghastly Gloom Hunter has been a really good card every time I've cast it, and just about every time I've seen my opponents cast it. So this is probably a little bit of an underrated common, just because Lifelink really helps break aggro matchups in Limited, and it's a cheap Lifelinker, and it's in the colors that deal with a bunch of 1/1 counters. Like, Golgari is like the +1/+1 counter archetype in this format. Okay, opponent attacks for a lot in the air. As bad as it is, we have to block here, because if we don't, my opponent can sack 3 creatures and just kill us. They can actually sack 2, because Guldra's puts a counter on by itself. Yep. Oh, never mind. We were dead regardless. Okay. I'm going to cut a Duelist for one of the 2-drop guys, simply because opponent has a lot of 2/3s. We need more guys that can block. I could have brought in more, but I didn't think it was super necessary. And we're going to start Wind Robber here. Get that milling happening early. Play a Swamp. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Now we could have played an island to have access to 2 duelists, but I think having access to Subtle Strike or a single duelist is better. Yeah. We'll flash in a duelist here. No targets. Untap. play an island, go to combat, and we will attack for 2. If my opponent subtle strikes, we can subtle strike to counteract it. Okay, opponent takes 2, mills 1, we mill a Gloom Hunter, pass the turn. Okay, opponent plays an Oran Reef Ooze, putting a counter on itself. So play a Duelist, mill our opponent, play a Duelist, mill our opponent, untap, we draw Zareth-san, feed the Swarm, take some damage, go to combat, and attack for 4. They now have 8 cards in graves, so we can sack Wind Robber to draw a card if we need to. Okay. But plays a Guldraw's Mucklord and a Cliffhaven Kitesail. Alright, well we were kind of hoping for an untapped land, though if we play this and bolt ourselves, it'll be pretty obvious what's going to happen. I guess we would take the Ooze. Yeah, let's do that. So we'll play Seagate Reborn, go to combat. We could, if we attack with the Wind Robber, we could Subtle Strike to kill Guldraw's Mucklord. We can actually just Subtle Strike to kill Guldraw's Mucklord. So we're going to attack with everybody. If we can kill this without our opponent getting a 1/1 counter value out of it, that's probably worth it more than just reanimating a permanent right now. Like, we can do this basically any turn after this. I should not have bolted Seagate Reborn. I should have played it tapped second main phase. Okay. We untap. We draw Nimana Skitter Sneak. So, go to combat. Attack with 2 Duelists. So, go ahead and Ninjutsu 1, lose the other, hit our opponent, and we'll reanimate the Ooze. Putting a 1/1 counter here. Okay, pass the turn. Now we have another Duelist as a combat trick. Okay, opponent kicks a Gloom Hunter. See if they put Moss Pit Skeleton back on top. They do. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Zulaport Duelist. We'll shrink the Gloom Hunter. Pre-combat. Go to combat. Attack, attack, attack. Activate the Ooze's ability. Put 1/1 counters on our other guys to make them even bigger. They have to block here, and they probably should block here, but you die if you block like that. Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, this opponent loses the Mucklord, we don't lose anything, they lose 3 life, and they gain 1. We mill the Moss Pit Skeleton, which I guess they can just put both back on top if they want. They choose not to. Okay, second main. Play out Skitter Sneak. Pass the turn. Alright, we get there. I took out Ruin Crab. I took out Ruin Crab instead of a Zulaport Duelist. I'm upset about that. That should not have been the case. I guess I was looking at the mana cost. Alright, we are going to keep this. When it gets to start, they start Swamp. We draw Cleric of Chill Depths. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent plays a Ghastly Gloom Hunter. So, play Zulaport Duelist and mill them. We untap, we draw Subtle Strike. Considering their opponent has so many things that add 1/1 counters, I'm just going to do this now. Not ideal, but it lets us save our better removal for a bigger thing. And lets us get in damage immediately. We're not even going to give our opponent the opportunity to play something that puts a 1/1 counter on that. Okay, they play a Mucklord. Kind of hoping to draw a Swamp. There it is. Play the Swamp. Okay, well, whoops. Wrong order, but what I was going to do anyway. Feed the swarm. Lose a bit of life. Get in for 3. And now we want to draw any untapped land so we can play the Cleric and the Acquisitions Expert. Okay, opponent plays their own Acquisitions Expert. Yeah, I think we drop the Cleric here. There's some notion that maybe we should drop the Thwart the Graves so we can get a bigger turn next turn. But at the same time, if we ever cast Thwart the Graves, we're getting a ton of value. Okay, they play a Utility Knife. We untap. We draw a Seafloor Stalker. Okay, so do we attack and offer the trade? Our opponent only has 2 cards in hand. I think we just play the Acquisitions Expert here. Okay, opponent has to choose one of their 2 cards and discard it. It's a swamp. Okay, pass the turn, no attacks. We have the higher attack creature right now, so if my opponent just wants to race, or we're gonna win unless they play this, which makes their Acquisitions Expert bigger. But now my opponent is hellbent, and we still have stuff. Okay, they're gonna put Moss Pit Skeleton back on top, and I believe that has kicker. So we untap, we draw swamp. So go to combat. That costs 6 instead of 5. I was thinking that if this costed 5, we could attack with Zulaport Duelist, force them to block, and then reanimate it and the Cleric, mill the Moss Pit Skeleton so they don't get the chance to play it and kick it. We're still going to attack because we need to limit the number of creatures our opponent has. Okay. Second main, we'll play Seafloor Stalker. Pass the turn. And opponent plays a big Moss Pit Skeleton. We untap. We draw an island. Play the island. I think we go for the reanimation play here. Just because it gets us more stuff. We don't have to worry about another Acquisitions Expert taking our cards out of hand. And it gives us a way to temporarily deal with the Moss Pit Skeleton if it becomes a problem. Because we can frost it for a turn. We also milled 2 good cards, both of which we would have been sad if our opponent had drawn it this turn. Okay, opponent drew a land. So they can suit up a creature and they can attack. Okay. They can actually equip Moss Pit Skeleton and then move over the equipment if they want. Unfortunately, we can't block that down. I think it's worth blocking with the Cleric here. Just to say that that doesn't untap for a turn. Okay, they move over the equipment, that's fine. We untap. If they had 1 more card in their graveyard, we'd have a bit of a better time here. Suit up the Seafloor Stalker. Pass the turn because I'm not willing to trade it. Cunning Geyser Mage is kind of nice, because we can unsummon the big Moss Pit Skeleton, forcing them to use all of their mana to replay it. Okay, they play a land. Go to combat. And they pass. We untap. We draw Salundi Vision. So play Salundi Isle. Make this unblockable. Give it a power boost. Attack for 4. And our opponent to 11. And I think with the number of chump blockers we have, we can win this race. Okay, they move over the equipment. They attack. We chump with a 1/1. They move the equipment back. It's equip 3, yeah? Okay. We draw a Skitter Sneak. We could bounce the Dauntless Survivor, which would let us get in for 4. It lets him put another 1/1 counter here, though. Yeah, I think we still do that. We can take 1 hit from the skeleton. The problem is when they start leaving it back on defense. So, unsummon the Survivor. Go to combat, attack for 4. If we could just get one more card in their graveyard, we'd be doing so much extra damage. Okay, opponent attacks for 6. No blocks. Go to 11. Opponent replays Dauntless Survivor. Which I think this guy is Dauntless Escort. It's like the same character in the art. They move over the equipment. We untap, we draw Wind Robber. This costs 3 now. Make him unblockable. Go to combat. This makes our opponent have to trade with the Cunning Geyser Mage or they lose. Okay, they take 5, they go to 2. And now, anything we put Mind Carver on is a threat. And we have a guy that we can block and sack to draw a card. Awesome. That is another 2-in-1 under our belt. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this content. I've been enjoying the Zendikar Rising Draft League. I'm not quite as good as as I am at other formats, but it is kind of fun. I'm still learning. I still need a few of the cards, so I'm probably going to keep playing some Zendikar Rising Draft League still. There is a Modern Cube. I like Modern Cube, but Modern Cube is not my favorite format. I much prefer Legacy or Vintage Cube. Modern Cube's okay, but yeah. Alrighty, well, I am going to go ahead and take Porter Pie here outside for a long WALK because he is very nosy and needy right now. But if you like this content and you want to see more like it, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch, same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!